Well, welcome back to More Than My Size. It is your host, Nimade, or that African butterfly.
And it's your girl AP, also known as APY Black on everything.
Yes, and we are coming to you with another episode. We hope you enjoyed last week and that you got a chance to see both parts of the episode, the part that we had on our YouTube, as well as the part on the guys' IG Live, which is on their page, Positive Vibes Maybe. And today we are continuing talking about relationships a little bit, just because I had the question of, is a power couple ever really like fully a power couple? Like, can you have a power couple where both people are the stars of the relationship, or both people are in the spotlight just as much? And I was telling Alicia that even in a couple, like when we think power couple, like Jay-Z and Beyonce, like, yes, they both have star power, but even when they went on their concert, it was mostly the Beyonce concert with Jay-Z there. Like, he took a step back for her to shine. Does it always have to be like that? Or can you have both people shining at the same time? What do you think, Alicia?
I think that is a good example for different reasons, though. So yes, I do think power couples that two people can share the spotlight. It's really contingent upon the people, personalities, needs, desires, goals. Although in that element of the concert, it was obviously Beyonce featuring Jay-Z or whatever. If we're looking at their relationship as a whole, though, they are respected equally as Beyonce and Jay-Z for different things. We know he started out in rap. He's notorious for recultivating his career from being a hustler to a billionaire conglomerate business. And, you know, Beyonce obviously went from being a member of Destiny's Child, which we always knew it was really Beyonce's child, but whatever, to, you know, evolving into a solo act and, you know, global tours, and even stepping her poor little feet into acting, which she should not. But at any rate, she has evolved and become something bigger than what she started out as. And I think it works for both of them because they have their own lanes, yet they have that equal star power. Now, what I will say is we only see what we see in the forefront, right?
Right.
We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And even when we think we're catching a glimpse of what's going on inside a relationship, we may never really know. I know when I think of the term power couple, I don't necessarily think about who's in the forefront. I think about it more of the couple's overall success, whether in their marriage and their business practices. And sometimes it doesn't require two people to be in the spotlight, but they're still a power couple because it's working for them as a couple.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with all of that. And that's actually part of why I use that as an example with the concert, because very much like you said, like in that setting, it was Beyonce's concert basically featuring Jay-Z, but behind closed doors or in other areas, it might be Jay-Z in the front. It might be both of them on equal footing. I think that a true power couple, like you said, it doesn't always have to be people in the spotlight. It's sort of knowing your role and knowing how you play a role in the success of you both. And whether that means that you're both successfully, you know, in the spotlight doing your own thing, or whether that means one person is, you know, has got your back while you are the front in the forefront, you know, like you and Jared. He is not, you know, on social media doing all the things, but, you know, when you need things put together, he's right there. When you need him at your shows, he's right there, you know. So you two are, and I'm not a huge fan of power couples. Just because I think it's like that thing that so many people are like, we're a power couple. Like the minute they get like 10 seconds of attention, like, we're a power couple. I want to be in a power couple. Like, just slow your roll and be in a couple. But anyways, but if I were to ascribe that title, I would say that it definitely would still apply to you, even though you're not both in the spotlight, because you as a unit, as a partnership, you are that power couple with you each playing your roles. And I don't think that it always has to be people in the spotlight to be a power couple, even though people
I'm
ask
so glad you said that, because I think it's really what value people assign to saying power couple. We know for most people, they're looking at it as celebrities or people who are, you know, influential or have, you know, notoriety. For me, a power couple is a couple that is succeeding at smashing their goals set forth for their unit.
Yeah.
That's a power couple to me. And I absolutely totally understand in terms of Jared. It's a running joke because even though he's not, the social media platform whiz or whatever, it's no, people see him so much because he's always with me that if like I've come into events when he's parking the car and people being like, where is he? Like he's always with you. Like they know. Because he is a great support. And that to me makes a power couple great when you guys can support each other in the ways that you need to. So for me, obviously when I'm doing events in public, things like that, anything dealing with, making sure I have adequate parking, seating, things like that for my disability, Jared's on go. But when it comes to me and how I support him, if, he works in the IT world, doing things that I do not understand. But every once in a while, he's like, Alicia, let me run this past you. And, so on and so forth. And I'm able to support him in that way. Or even there are times I would jokingly call him my manager, which is not really a joke. He doesn't take it seriously. But Jared is forever the one coming up with like ideas like, oh, you should do this to monetize your platform and, blah, blah, blah. To me, you're powering what is the AP Young blog platform, but it's ours as far as I'm concerned. It's not just mine, because what I do is a reflection of him. What he does is a reflection of me. So in that sense, I feel like we're a power couple because we have a common goal and we're working towards it together.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Now, was there ever, like, did you guys gracefully fall into your roles of like finding your dynamic, or was it something that you worked through during your relationship? Like, did you gracefully fall into like you being more in the front, him being more supportive, and like just the way you interact? Was it like that since you were dating, or did you like evolve to where you are now?
Honestly, it's been that way, and I don't know if I would call it gracefully. It's just always kind of been that way. So like when Jared and I met, social media was not what it is now. I was on MySpace, but one of the things my husband always says to me,
I miss MySpace.
I miss the background to the music. Call me corny, and the playlist was mwah.
Yep.
But he would, he always said to me, Alicia, wherever you've been on social media, you've always had this knack for building a following. So when he met me, I had a following on MySpace. Now, under different circumstances, because shortly after we met, I started doing the adult entertainment aspect of social media. So that came with, I think that was probably the hardest for him, because I was his girlfriend or the person he was dealing with. And, I was doing adult fetish work, photo wise. And I think it was tough for him to, have to deal with the fact that there are going to be men that are going to pay for, to see what is, what he viewed to be his, which is me. So I know that part was.
Can we just have like a moment of shout out to Jared for his level of confidence? Because most men could not put up with that or deal with that at all. So you've got to be pretty ballsy and have confidence and trust in you to be able to handle dating someone doing that. So
I mean, I always tell him I think it's amazing. And I also appreciate the fact that even during that time, so there was a moment in time where that was snowballing into something bigger than what I had intentionally set it out to be. And even
you just got the magic touch, Alicia.
Huh?
So you just got the magic touch, like everything you touch, like, here we are.
But even through that, he was like, all right, well, we could do this and I don't think the term was monetized back then, but he was definitely looking at like, well, if you're going to do it, like, here's how we can make additional income and things like that. So even in a space where it was probably the most uncomfortable for him, he was on board. And I think even when I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore for my own reasons, as we moved throughout our relationship, I was actually doing work that was behind the scenes for other people. So there was definitely a lull there in terms of anybody being on the forefront. It was just us, and he was still helping shoot ideas. Like, we were each other's sounding boards. He's actually into making beats and stuff like that. So we had that connection with each other. He would encourage me, to go do spoken word and things like that. But it was pretty quiet up until the last, I would say, probably like 2017 was when we started to see a pickup in, any kind of social media presence. And it grew faster than I expected it to. But in his eyes, he felt like, yeah, this makes absolute total sense
Yeah.
to me. Like, I can see this being a thing. And he's talked me through many of days of wanting to quit, being discouraged, feeling like I didn't know how to convey the ideas that I had in my head, self-doubt. Like, he's that person who will help me recenter and refocus. And whereas a lot of people may think that the person who's in the forefront is the more important person, to me, the person who keeps the machine going is the
Yeah,
person
that's
who's
like what
the
I was
most
saying in the
important.
last episode. That's like what I was saying in the last episode. Like, you can't work and do well at your work if you're worried about things at home and things in the background. So the person taking care of all of that is just as important, because they allow you to be great.
And that's the truth. And that is the absolute truth. And I don't think, I'm sure I would have found my confidence, regardless of whatever throughout my life. But I do certainly believe that having his presence has been huge in that, because he has insights that I don't. I always love having the male perspective. And don't get me wrong, I have great male friends who are able to offer me male perspective. But, I think because he's a little bit older than me, that worked well for us. And so, more importantly, it's who he is. He's a very secure person. He was never, there were moments in our relationship where there were insecurities, and with reason. But he's not the kind of guy who's like sitting around worried about losing me, or worried about what happens if, people see my, like, we did a photo shoot for our daughter's graduation, and the young lady who shot the photos, she follows me on Instagram. But she also happens to be, a coworker at his job. And so she used to go to work and I guess tell my husband all the time, like, oh my God, I love your wife and blah, blah, blah. And, even when we shot, she's like, I'm shooting a local celebrity. Like, this is exciting. And like, it was so funny to me. But even in those moments, he's been right by my side as people are like fangirling, like, oh my God, I mean, and he never trips about it. Like, he's never like, this is too much. No, like
Because some guys can't, their ego can't handle it either. That's a huge thing. I mean, on both sides, but some guys, like, they really can't.
I always tell him, you can always feel better knowing that you have always been the breadwinner in this relationship.
Right.
He's always made more money than me. And to be quite honest, I fashioned some of my goals, or even the ways that I achieved them, by imitating him. You let him tell it, he didn't have a plan, so to speak. But when I first met him, he was just in the beginning of his IT career. And now it's 16 years later, and, he's up here now in his career. And I've watched him go from job to position changes and promotions, and, watching that income increase along the way, and knowing that, like, yeah, he did this of his own volition, his own, ambition, or whatever the case may be. And I'm proud of him for that. And I look to him, honestly, like, sometimes to just be like, how did you decide that you were going to do A, B, and C? Like, what's your secret? Like, give it to me. Like,
Yeah, I don't think that people get enough credit sometimes for being in the corporate world and how they navigate through the corporate world, because it's hard sometimes, and it takes a lot out of you. Like, entrepreneurs get a lot of like, oh, but not everyone isn't meant to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. And some people, have to navigate through the corporate world, and that's just as difficult. And it takes just as many talents. Like, the stuff that I'm putting into practice now for my own stuff is stuff I've been doing in corporate forever. So it's not like it was, because I used to be like, oh, I wasted all these years of my life in banking. Ugh. But now I'm like, well, no, I learned how to make great presentations, and I did a lot of facilitating, and I did most of my time in banking was actually training people, because that's just what I've been good at. So it was, beneficial. And there are things that you learn out of it. And all of my leadership stuff comes from that too. So I think that that's something important to them.
Like, anybody, and well, let me not speak for everybody else, but I'm sure you understand because you have a duality about you. You have a 9 to 5, but you also have what you do on the side of that. For me, I left my 9 to 5 just because my circumstances allowed for that. But those skills you learn in corporate America, whether you're in private or federally funded or state, they're transferable skills that you can apply to entrepreneurship, whether it is organization, maybe it's software that you've had to use, maybe delegating roles or running a schedule or organizing. Those are all skills that you need to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is like a free for all, like, oh, I'm going to do what I want to do.
I mean, that's why most entrepreneurs fail, is because like if you have to build that discipline. Like it's bad enough trying to be, disciplined when you have a manager or a boss or whatever. But if you can't be it in that situation, you think you're going to magically do it when you're working for yourself and you have the ability to do nothing? Like, no, there's a reason why it's so hard.
I've been so transparent with people. Like, I try to have myself on a schedule. Sometimes I have to tweak that schedule to accommodate whatever's going on up in this noggin, emotional wise or otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, how my health is affecting me. But staying organized is so important for me. Like, I have a planner, a digital one and a manual one. And I do do outlines and things like that for my blog articles where a lot of people may not. I laugh because today, so I recently accepted a speaking engagement for Saturday at a Plus Size Revolution conference to kind of step in and help out.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so in a very short amount of time, because today is Wednesday, I have to, have my speaking points together because I have a 20-minute set where I have to talk about whatever it is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then a 10-minute Q&A. And so I was sitting downstairs, me and hubby were having some coffee, and I'm doing my outline, and I'm like, somebody help me with this outline. Like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And my sister and my husband are like, I don't write outlines. This is not my thing. But I have to in order to.
Well, I mean, a 20-minute speaking engagement is a long ass time. Like 20 minutes may not seem long, but if you are on stage in front of people, 20 minutes is so long. Yeah. So I understand.
Different when you have somebody to fall back on. Because I've had a longer speaking engagement than that when I did TCF. But I had a panel of women.
A panel, yeah, that's totally different.
So it was like, oh yeah, we could bounce this off. Now this being like, oh, and Alicia, you're gonna speak to what you do on your platform. So I had to come up with a title for what I'm talking about, and it has to make sense. So the whole
it's a whole process. Yeah,
and the event is about like Plus Size Revolution, meaning everything from health, mind, body, so on and so forth. It's supposed to be an empowerment, which we know is a buzzword, but I try my hardest to participate in ones that truly are geared towards that. So I'll be discussing holistic confidence, mind, body, and fashion, because I feel like that covers the gambit of what I do. But even today, as I'm like trotting out notes, I'm like, anybody who thinks, and maybe for anybody, it does come naturally, right? Maybe they can get away with doing a 20-minute speaking engagement and being fine. I'm great with public speaking, but I still need planning. Yeah. So I don't look at entrepreneurship as being better than 9 to 5 because how dare I came from a 9 to 5. What are we talking about?
Right, exactly. And you learn the things that you need there. And the other side of it, I mean, it's all tough. So when we talk about like power couples, and not necessarily having it be someone in the spotlight, but sometimes it is. So we have been friends for a while now, Ms. Felicia. What type of person do you think I need? Like, what yin do you think I need to my yang? Do I need someone who is going to be, upfront and out there too as well? Or do you think I need someone who like always just wants to be in the background, a little of both? What do you think?
What if I did you one better and gave you a name?
Sure, Alicia. Wait.
I will not do that.
Wait. Don't give me a name.
You're not ready for that. So for you, I think you need someone who's going to play the background. Because your personality is what it is. It's live, direct, not in an obnoxious way either, but you have a presence about you and people respond to you in that way. And I think because of that, people kind of flock towards you because of the nurturing that you show, the compassion, but also the very authoritative way in which you give out information, especially when it's something that you're passionate about. I think that you do probably need someone who is not gonna be all up in your business unless you ask, because you're very like,
Yes. Like, shoot
I
that
can
to
do
the
this
top of the list.
myself. Like, you don't want unsolicited advice. So if you're gonna have a partner, I think you want a partner who is honestly gonna be able to help you carry on in the background. Like, oh, hey babe, can you handle the vacuuming today? I've got to go do this. Like, I really think that that's what you need, is someone who is going to be fine with being in the background, so to speak.
Yeah. I feel like you are right, but also, I don't know. And this is why I asked your opinion, because I don't know. So we'll see who I end up with. But like, part of me feels like, yes, I need someone who's just like in the background, like like lets me shine and doesn't have an issue with it. But at the same time, I also don't always like, people think that I like being in the spotlight more than I actually do. I really actually don't. I prefer being behind the scenes. Even like when I talk about like positions and things like that, like I always used to joke, like I like being the neck more than the head. Now I over time have realized that I'm good as the head. I'm good as the forefront. Like it's just something that comes naturally to me. But even like all of my shows and stuff that I do on like Instagram lives and things, my dream is, and people will be like, oh, you're gonna have a show one day. My dream is to be a producer. Like I don't want to be the Cast of Love and Hip Hop. I want to be Mona Scott. Like I want to be the person. Like I want real power. But
But
like
oftentimes, whether you want it or not, it happens that
yeah,
way. Like, I won't even lie to you. When I was completely content and happy being, well, I won't say happy because there were other facets to what I used to do. But when I was managing artists, like I was behind the scenes, I was, scouting the locations, the different opportunities, stuff like that, helping them pick their beats and so on and so forth. I was good there and I was good with my artists being in the spotlight. However, there were situations where sometimes my artists would be like, yeah, like you come into a building and you're like a distraction because you're one of the only women in a very male dominated space. So even in those moments, I wasn't trying to be at the forefront, but that would go plenty of places.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
that would
if
end up
things
happening.
right, and I mean, if things work out the way that I would want them, where I'm successful, it would still happen. Which is why I need someone who's very confident and sure in themselves, who isn't going to be like jealous if I get attention. But like when I walk into like a room, I'm not that person who wants people to be like, oh, like I would like to just slide in, and like if I get the attention, it's fine. But for the most part, and this is why I lean also towards wanting to be with someone who is fine having spotlight of their own, of his own, because like I want to be able to have off time. Like I very much value my off time, because there's a time where you have to be on camera and you have to be blah blah. And I like when I can be with someone who I can sit back and like they're the forefront. Like I'm totally fine with that. Then I think sometimes maybe because I'm in the forefront so much, people think I wouldn't be, but I actually crave that. Like I want to go to an event and I want you to do your thing, and I don't want to have to like babysit you or feel like I'm in charge of whatever. Like I want someone who has like their own light. But I think it also goes back to, which we've talked about, my control issues, that I want spotlight on me when I want it,
Okay.
like I want it on me when I want it on me, but then other than that I want to be left alone. So like in those situations, like I love going and supporting the person and having them have their whatever, because I don't always want to be the person that has to be on. Like I like the idea of having some, like I like if we can schmooze together, if I can be pretty while he schmoozes.
Pop question. If you and your mate or your partner are on the red carpet, who's standing in the front?
I mean, ideally we're standing side by side. Ideally we're taking pictures together because but I, in a perfect world, it would depend on the event, right? So there would definitely be some events like with the different organizations and things I work with where like he's gonna need to hold my purse for a second while I take a few pictures. And then we take some together. And then there's gonna be some events hopefully where like I'm to the side while he takes a few pictures and then we come together. I think part of why I would like someone who wants a little bit of light in their own regards is because on some level, and I could be wrong, on some level, I feel like everyone kind of wants a little bit of it. And I think like no matter how secure you are with yourself, it's hard to always be the back to someone's front, and especially when you're the man in that situation. So I think for me, it would help alleviate some of my concerns or worry that like if he had his own spotlight too, then I could be like, great. But then you also run into the type of guy who has their own spotlight might also be the type of guy who wants all of the spotlight on him and it would still have issues with me. So who knows who I'll end up with? I really don't know. We'll see.
I think the most important thing that I could say about power couple, all of that stuff, is you may not start out your relationship with either one of you having any intentions of doing things, and things just naturally progress and people's roles and positions evolve, and then they find themselves in these positions versus someone who maybe already at the outset has a goal, knows that they want to be, in the spotlight and is very upfront with their mate from the beginning so they know what they're getting into. But if it's something that kind of like in mine and Jared's circumstances naturally progresses, I would say once you're cognizant of it, have a conversation, because the best thing that you can do is keep that line of communication open, because resentment can build in spaces that you don't think that it should or would. I regularly do a check-in with Jared and like talk to him about things. It's funny because like my sister, and especially people who know me, they're always like perplexed by the way that people respond to me, because they're like, it's Alicia. This is like they call me all my childhood nicknames and like all the embarrassing stuff that I used to do. But I also feel like I need that, and I love that, because it's one of the things that keeps me humble, keeps me grounded, and reminds me that like you really are just like anybody else. Don't let this go to your head. But those conversations of talking to Jared and asking him, are you okay? Because I do have to remember, my husband's an introvert. He does not he does not have an affinity for being out in crowds of people and things like that. So if you truly want to be a power couple and not just a popular couple, which is a difference,
which is a huge difference,
you need to understand the power of communication and honoring your partner and where they are at whatever junction of life that you guys are in. So that's really important, more than who's taking the photo. And
and I agree, and that's what I said before. Like I feel like people misuse the word power couple, and why I hate, like, you'll never hear me being like, we're a power couple. I find it slightly obnoxious, but that's just me personally.
I hate that. I hate couple goals too. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
We have to talk about that.
We will have to talk about that another time. But I will say that you mentioned communication is why I'm huge on communication. Like for me, no matter like if he's an introvert, extrovert, loves attention, doesn't love the attention, like it's so critical to me to find someone who I trust and who I communicate well with, because I feel like once we have those, we can mesh through pretty much anything, right? Like when you have that level of trust, that communication, when you find that person you can be completely yourself with, who knows you well, you can have those conversations. And even when things are rough, like that person will know your intent because they know who you are. Right. So good luck to me finding that person. I do though think that you mentioned. Thank you. It'll happen. And the thing is, I'm in no rush. Like that's one of the joys about not wanting kids. Like I have no clock. I'm in no rush.
That name is still sitting on the tip of my tongue. But we'll leave it where it's at right now.
We'll leave it. And though I do want to say, like, next time you brought up something that was a really good point about like not letting spotlight get to your head and remembering that people are just people. I think that is a great conversation we should have next week or next time. Just about that, because it's a thing.
Thank you guys so much for joining in for another episode of More Than My Size. I'm kind of trash about promoting it on social media, so I'm going to do that this week. We're going to be on top of it.
We will.
We always appreciate the viewership. Your subscribe and your like are very much welcome. And of course, share if it's something or a topic you're interested in, or you just vibe with us as your favorite hostess with the mostest. Share with your friends, share on social media, share in an email. We love it. We appreciate it. And of course, engage with the Spill It question on More Than My Size _ the show on Instagram. We will see you guys next time.
Bye guys.